No, I just forgot recording, so I just recorded.
Okay,
Sorry,
okay.
guys. People who have missed. But yeah, anyway,
Maybe we
carry
can
on,
take
bro.
them once more, Apurva, especially Apurva.
Sure.
Yeah,
If they want to go again, we can take it again
yeah.
later.
Later, yeah, afterwards. Okay, okay. Because we don't have much speakers today, so that's not a problem. Okay. So next we have Survi. So Survi, are you ready?
Uh, yes, Rohit.
Yeah. Okay.
I might take a little longer today because it's a little long talk.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
is about
You
cryptography
explain.
and
You just try to
yeah.
cover it in a way so that people don't get bored. So that's up to you.
Sure, sure.
Okay.
Okay. So in the last talk, I was talking about crypto and the unimagined future, where I covered what is cryptography, what is the technology behind it, the blockchain technology, how is the Bitcoin originated, and which is called as a decentralized digital currency. So these were my highlights in the last topic. Today, I'll be talking about how is crypto affecting the physical money or the cash and the future of cash. That is called as the death of cash and the war for the future of money. The death of cash and the war for the future of money. Central banks are more than a decade behind private money and they are scrambling. Bitcoin is a hydra. Cut off one end and two more grow back. Governments everywhere are back on their heels and they are looking to build their own digital money. They are terrified that private decentralized money would strip them of the power or to control the flow of money and change the rules that underpin it. When Facebook and Telegram tried to launch their own digital currency, the US Congress and other world governments went after the company and crushed it, despite the fact that the companies raised all that money from accredited investors. The rise of CDBCs will mean one thing: the death of cash. The move to cashless society started years ago. In late 2016, when Prime Minister Narendra Modi suddenly banned most of the country's currency with the stroke of a pen, it was supposed to cut down on corruption and get people paying their taxes. China is already a largely cashless society. China's digital yuan is the spark that will light the fuse that speeds us to the explosive and sudden death of cash worldwide, not laws or Bitcoin. The Chinese are investing heavily in developing economies, building roads, bridges, and infrastructure, or offering loans to do it all. In no time, China will expect all the developing countries to pay back those loans during the using the digital yuan. With those new CDBCs, countries will have full surveillance right in your pocket at all the times. Every transaction you ever make, everywhere you ever go, all of it tied to your identity and history and geolocation data. A decade after that, you won't file your taxes. They'll get yanked out automatically every time you buy a second-hand toaster or a sale at a garage. If there is a mistake, you will call to fight it or have an accountant try to get you a refund while the government takes a free loan from you for a year. The money won't even pass from central banks to private banking institutions. It will go right into your pocket, and those panopticons will know everything you ever did from your cradle to your grave. The death of cash will put tremendous pressure on the system that governments can't yet see. Its effects will ripple out into society and cause tremendous change. Governments that crush their citizens with a punishing tax burden may find themselves pushed to the brink when whole industries that relied on cash to avoid suffocating bureaucracies collapse under increased scrutiny. Central banks may cheat their ability to smash industries that run on the back of illegal immigrants, like picking crops or cleaning houses, but they may quickly find there are no citizens at all to do all these jobs, and that the price of asparagus skyrockets. Even in societies where the laws were closely match the will of the people, and the tax burden is balanced, There are still laws that don't line up and what people want. Humans are remarkably innovative creatures. The war on drugs cost the US over $1 trillion over the last 40 years for a net 0% decrease in the drug usage, because people still found a way to get drugs. When people don't get what they want, they get very creative, and that creativity will increasingly spawn innovation in private money to get around surveillance coins. The next decade will be an ongoing battle between decentralized, privacy-focused digital money and centralized money that gives nation states control over our lives. We have two potential futures. The first is a Black Mirror timeline where central power successfully annihilate cash and personal privacy and replace it with digital surveillance money that can peer into every aspect of our lives. The second one, where decentralized privacy-focused money forms a parallel economic operating system in the world, providing checks and balances on the power of CDBCs. Tomorrow's kids will trust smart contracts more than they trust banks. Those kids won't go to banks to restructure their school loans. They'll go to an open platform and get it from a machine without ever talking to a human being. Entrepreneurs won't go to bank to get a loan to open their bakery. They'll hit the same open platforms and borrow directly from a group of bakery enthusiasts who might also take a small share of the profits over time, giving us a micro VC investors across the world. Art and the surge of collectibles. NFT has taken a boom in art industry. So let's all discuss what it has, what is it meaning in art industry. NFTs aren't just a passing fad, and microtransactions will change the very nature of the web, maybe for the worse. It all started with CryptoKitties, but it won't end there. Now let's understand what is an NFT. A non-fungible token is a digital asset that exists completely in the digital universe. You cannot touch it, but you can own it. An NFT can be any type of digital file, from an artwork to an article, a music, or even a meme. Non-fungible tokens represent a new kind of collectible, but they are so much more than that too. NFTs won't replace physical collectibles, but they'll enhance and augment them. In the coming decade, expect everyone in the collectibles business to have NFTs. We'll see digital collectibles in everything, from video games with microtransactions to every major sport, from soccer to American football to baseball and every big esport too. Expect every celebrity and sports star to have an NFT side hustle fed by their social media platform. Let's not forget artists either. Beeple's record-breaking Christie's auction for $69 million got everyone in the art world buzzing. I'll show in the later half of my talk, I'll be showing the Beeple's NFT, which was sold for $69 million. I'll be sharing my screen later on. The artist himself thinks the NFT craze is a bubble that will pop like the early internet bubble. It's Darwinian evolution in motion. NFTs give artists another way to sell their artwork without a middleman. Today's NFT industry is a tiny drop in the bucket to the global collectible market. NFTs will bring a dark side too. Now, this is where I am very much interested to make a point in my talk, including my last talk and today's talk. NFT has got a plus positive advancement in our world, but it is also coming up with a dark side too. Unbreakable DRM. The IP providers are investing in NFTs as a way to have more ironclad control of IP in the future. As people listen to songs on streaming music channels or watch them on YouTube, fractions of cent or stats will flow back via microtransactions to the original owners of that song or video in a near constant stream. Today, we don't pay anything if we are listening on Spotify. We do not pay to the copyright of the song person, whoever has the copyright of that song. But in the coming future, we'll be paying that to the person of whose song we are listening to. The question is whether we'll really like this new digital utopia we are building. When every song costs a microtransaction and your Spotify bill is variable based on how much you listen, will it be a better world? 1 month you will pay some 500 bucks to Spotify, and the next month you're paying 1500 bucks because you went on a road trip listening to music nonstop and you threw a rager all weekend with your friends. Does that even make sense? The free surveillance internet economy we have all grown up with has reached a natural end. Crypto will form the foundation of a new micro subscription economy, with our wallets constantly feeding a vast and shifting array of goods and services and media. Crypto makes it not just possible, but inevitable. If you have 10 subscription services now, like Netflix, Amazon Prime, etc., you will have hundreds in a decade. Everything from your car to your bike will be a subscription. Will we actually own anything anymore beyond our house and the clothes on our backs? It is something to think about. You will top off a wallet and fractions of a cent will flow out of it over time to watch various videos or play games or rent an app. The payments will be so small that you won't really pay attention to them until you log to your dashboard to see what you spent. You will get a warning that it's running low and that your ability to watch YouTube or play that new gem collection game is at risk. The ultimate question is whether we will really love this or hate it. Are we building a better tomorrow? Or will we long for a return to the era where everything on the internet was free and we paid for it with some annoying ads that most of us ignored anyway? We may hate the microtransaction internet, but we love the privacy of tomorrow's apps. Innovation and freedom are a double-edged sword. You cannot get the good without the bad. We often blame technology for human nature. It's fashionable now to blame social media for spreading propaganda, but people spread propaganda long before social media ever existed. Humans didn't need Twitter and Facebook to spread lies and genocidal hatred before World War II, the end and the beginning. I'm still incredibly passionate about crypto and see it as a revolutionary change to money, privacy, and distributed information sharing. But increasingly, I see the dark side of it too. The dark side isn't buying drugs on the dark web as governments would have you believe. It's how distributed ledgers will enable DRM and sophisticated tracking and tracing, as well as how those original ideas of openness and freedom will get wrapped by centralized power to create surveillance money and eliminate cash. Technology is always a double-edged sword. Too often we tend to think of technologies in black and white, but the truth is always somewhere in between. Technologies, people, companies, nations, and culture always do both good and bad in the world. If we are lucky, technologies do more good than bad. The light balances the darkness. Cryptocurrencies and cryptography are powerful, society-shaping technologies, and we are only beginning to understand their reach and influence now. They'll enable the best and worst of us. Crypto will deliver both unprecedented freedom and even more barbaric authoritarian control. The question will be how much of each. That's up to all of us. The future is always in motion and we have a hand in shaping it. The world we choose will be one of our own making. It's up to us to choose. As the character Sarah Connor once said in one of the Terminator films, there is no fate but what we make for ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you, Survi. It was really, wonderful talk about crypto and NFTs. Actually, I'm also passionate about NFTs and crypto, especially crypto. So I understand what you you talked about. It's really good thing. It's really a evolution towards money for privacy and decentralizing the assets. But every time when something new comes up, we are afraid. We get afraid, right? We don't want things to get messed up. The existing system. We don't want things to get in a get to, so that things are not put it in the wrong hand, wrong people or terrorists, all these things, all these people, they don't get the benefit of it. So this is the human nature. Then whenever we are getting something new, whether it's good or bad, irrespective of that, we are afraid in the first place. So if you talk about anything, any technology, let's say computer, mobile phone, anything, it's really something people get afraid first, then they get used to it. If it is comforting them, if it is making them they're life goods, right? So that's one thing, and you really covered it well. You covered each and every point, so that was really wonderful. And I'm actually curious to know that how you got this good content. It was really good actually.
I really tried to, explain all of it in short time, because NFT and crypto is a very vast topic,
Yes.
and it is still transforming. It is not developed completely. So
Yes.
we need to collect data from different portals, and then the correct ones, not the false ones, and then assemble and then prepare a talk, because everybody is learning this new technology. Nobody taught us in the school. We never got to learn all these. It is evolving.
When we were in
Like,
school, it was not there. I think.
wasn't right.
It
And
started
it didn't even
2008.
exist before COVID.
Yes, correct. Yeah,
I just want to share my screen. I want to show something here.
Yeah, please go ahead.
So can you see?
Yes. Yeah, I know this picture.
So yeah, this is that Beeple's NFT, because of which, the art industry has turned so much craze for NFTs. This was sold for $69 million. This is a collage of combining artworks of 5,000 artworks, and it is his 13 years long work.
Yeah. Surbhi, I think we are losing your voice.
This one.
You can stop sharing if you want.
Just before I was joining.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you can speak now. I think it is better now.
Yeah, no, I want to share another this thing which happened right now. I'll just show it and then I'll speak after that. Yes. So before entering this book club, I came across this thing. Forget Zoom weddings. So these guys got married in metaverse. This happened today. Okay. US citizens Tracy and Dave Gigan got hitched in a virtual ceremony with digital avatars dressed like them. So they are them. And this is a virtual world. They are those two people who are getting engaged, and they sent an invitation link to all these characters. They formed their own characters and entered this whole virtual wedding thing. This is, I don't know, this is bizarre. I really don't know how to put this. This is insane.
Yeah, again, something new comes up. It is already. Yeah.
And now the companies have begun investing in building replicas of the most popular sought after real life wedding venues, like destination weddings, like Paris. They can have it in, Tokyo, Paris, everywhere.
Yeah, I think
it is really just like getting married in person is too mainstream.
Yes. Correct. Hello. Surbhi, are you there? Hello. Okay. Surbhi, I think we have lost your voice.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Hello. Yeah. Thank you, Surbhi. I think you're done, right? Hello.
Yes. That's it.
Okay. Thank you. I think you really explained one more thing that is really bizarre actually, but it's the future, I think. Yeah. So next decade will be it's going to be the battle between the traditional things we are whether it's cash or whether it's traditional meetings, between virtual meetings, virtual cash, digital cash, right? Digital currencies, all those things. So yeah, it will be a fight. Whoever wins, they will rule, obviously. So thank you, Surbhi, for that.
Right.
We will just
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. we'll just go to the next part of the book club where we get people who are newly joined. We get their introduction. So I think we have one new guest today, new person joined.
Rohit, I think
He dropped, right?
he's not. Yeah.
Right,
We can
okay.
continue.
Okay, we can continue. So we already got our PM's Learning by Seva. Thank you for that. So let's go to the next speaker. Now we have Soumya. I think Soumya, are you ready now? Soumya, we can you go next? Okay. Soumya, I think you're speaking, but we cannot hear you. You are unmuted already. Okay. No issue. Karan bhai, can you go next, or maybe I will take my...
You take it, Rohit. I'll take next to that.
Okay. So, hi guys. I'm Rohit, and I work for one of the telecom vendors in Nokia. I work for IT industry basically, and I am having total 6 years of experience, and I am an IT Bhopal alumni. Actually, my passion is basically growth, reading books, sharing the learnings, and technology basically. So I have lots of technology things. I'm really passionate about those things. So I try to use those two things, my passion, my technology passion, and growth passion, to fuse these things, and so that we can create something new. So that's why I'm here at Book Club, trying to help people to in a effective communication and life skills, and growth. Want to create a growth environment. So yeah, that's about me actually. Now my topic for today is from the book How to Train Your Brain. So last week I covered the first part of it. It was how meditation can help you be more productive. So second part is that how to meditate, right? That's the one thing that we should know before we jump into it. Before we apply those learning, we need to know what is meditation. So I've been trying meditation for many years. It was not regular since I started this book. So I thought just give it a try. So I was not getting time in the morning, so I started in the evening. So my meditation practice is something different. It may not suit you. So I'm just going to cover few things, few steps, or few ways of meditate, how you can meditate. So there are two ways actually. When you see, there are some people, when you imagine meditation, you see there is one sadhu who is sitting in Himalaya, and he's just sitting in a position like cross leg, and putting his hand on the thighs, and thinking about some higher power, all those things. There is some more person who is sitting in front of laptop, and he's very tired, very fed up with the laptop. So he put down the laptop. He just sit on a chair, the leg just like me, and he closes his eye, and he just focus on his thought. This is the second way of meditating. So for us, I think the second way is the most doable. You cannot go to it is not possible for us to go to any quiet place and have this candle lights up and with a beautiful aroma of this smell. You cannot do this. So I'm just going to focus on this thing, how you can meditate. So when we talk about this meditation, we have two types of meditation. Basically, one is basically with the meditation with the body. Second is meditation with the mind. So when I talk about meditation with body, you need to control your body. You need to be aware of your body posture. You need to be aware of your pressure point. When you sit, you see there is certain pressure on your shoulder. There is certain pressure on your leg, certain pressure on your thighs, on your lower back also. So this is when you meditate, you get aware of your posture. You get aware of your body. When we are sitting, when we are doing anything, when we are doing our office work, oftenly we don't focus on on so many parts of our body because we are busy of doing certain things. But when you meditate with body, what you do, you get aware of all those points which are having stress, which you can feel, And this you can do intentionally. You cannot do unintentionally. You need to focus on your body part. You need to make yourself calm. Just focus. Just relax. So this is the first part. You get control. You get aware of your body. That's the whole point, basically. You get aware of your body, what it is doing, how much pressure you are feeling. If you are stressed out, let's say because of certain reason, you don't know. Just relax. Just sit in a comfortable position like us, like me, let's say, okay? Just think of your pressure point. So this is the whole idea. You get aware of your pressure points. Second part, meditating with the mind. So that is really important. Why? Because it is all about mind. And our mind and body, they work in a harmony. So if you are not focused on one thing, let's say mind or body, other part will get distracted. Let's say if your body parts are not relaxed, if you are not feeling them, obviously your mind will get wandered. So what you do, you control your thoughts in the mind. I'm just talking about second part. So meditating with mind, you get control of your thought. How you can do? There is no switch to stop your thought. People say, I am meditating, I'm just going to stop my thought. That is not happening. As long as you are alive, as long as you are conscious, you cannot stop your thought. There is no switch, there is no way. You only can control your thought. You only can get aware of your thought. You need to get aware whatever you are thinking, because thoughts are really powerful. They shape our life. They shape our behavior. They shape everything. So when you are controlling your thought, you are aware of your thought, you are basically meditating. So the best way to do is, as the expert says, you focus on your breath. So you just get relaxed in a comfortable position. You may close your eyes, or maybe for some people, if you're not comfortable, you can partially open your eyes or maybe completely open your eyes and focus on your breath. Focus on your lungs. When the air gets inside and the lungs get inflated with the air, just focus on that. And whenever your mind get wandered, you just let it be. Just bring it back gently. Don't force it, otherwise it will wander more. Don't force your brain to stop the thought or to bring that thought. Don't do it. Don't force anything. Just let it be. Gently bring that thought back to us. When you do that, what will happen? I'll just give you one really good example, really good scenario that happened with lots of us when we are alone, when we are meditating. We remember that thing that happened long ago, 3 years, 4 years ago, 10 years ago in a wedding. Someone laughed on your, let's say, dress, okay? And you remember, yaar, kya ho gaya us din, bahut bura hua tha, you just cannot control that thought, right? And why it happened? It doesn't happen, suddenly. Maybe you are meditating, your dog barks. Because of that dog barks, you remember something. Because of that something, you remember about wedding. Because of that wedding, you remember about your incident with the wedding. You see, this is how our brain works. It's a impulsive behavior of our brain. It's have chains of thoughts. So what you need to do, you don't need to control, because you cannot control. You just need to relax, focus it. You cannot stop it. Let it be. Gently bring it back. Now you are more peaceful, right? Just do this exercise and you will be able to achieve tremendous result, because I have achieved. I mean, I'm since last week, maybe more than 1 week, I'm reading this book. I'm reading this chapter again and again, and I'm trying to meditate in the evening, and I'm seeing that there is some improvement in my work. There is some improvement in my personal well-being. I mean, in 10 days also, this is happening. So this is how we can do. There is one really good quote from Stanley Kubrick. I don't know you know him. He was he made with this book, I think I don't know which book, Space Odyssey, right? So this quote was like this: observation is a dying art. Why? Because we don't observe, we wonder. Thank you. That's all.
Amazing, Rohit bhai. In fact, I was closely relating with whatever you're suggesting. I think it was more of what you were speaking, and we're trying to relate. Whoever followed what Rohit has shared, so powerful, because the first challenge you would face is to take out that time about for yourself. And this book club becomes a platform. I know all of you are super busy. So if you could leverage what Rohit just shared, straight away I found the difference, because we're so occupied, our thoughts are so consumed by a lot of work, a lot of family, and इतने सारे information से loaded है अपने बारे में, we don't even have time to think. So I think that time I got, the moment Rohit was speaking, I was just visualizing, and then taking my thoughts out, and then calming myself down, and then it was feeling so amazing. So imagine if you can just take that time and then start implementing. Amazing talk, Rohit. Thank you so much for sharing.
Just to add what Rohit said, no, and Kiran said, I have been, practicing this meditation, evening meditation with my family altogether. Okay, and I found some guided meditation, some with recordings. Okay, you can get it from the internet itself. So exactly that works in the same way like what Rohit said. Exactly, you need to focus, like you try to bring your focus on your breath, and that is what how they used to guide us how to do this meditation. And that's why I have several times I have practiced that, and that's very much helpful. And that's the thought when Rohit said no, I thought, okay, this is the same thing is going to happen, and exactly the same. So you'll feel very much stressed if you 10-15 minutes if you can spend on this, right? It will be very much helpful, and also like very much refreshing. After that you will feel. So you can try for some guided meditation. I have the link also, so I might share with in the group, so that that can help you.
Yeah,
Thank
sure.
you.
You can share, Dilip Chachu, you can share. Yeah. And one more thing, if someone cannot relate whatever I said, I can just relate with your mobile phone, with your laptop. Okay, if you are technology enthusiast, you just remember we used to have this 1 GB RAM phone previously, right? Nowadays they are not. You cannot run the you cannot just have this phone. So this is the perfect thing. I just want to take example of, now we have 6 GB, 8 GB, 12 GB RAM phone. Why? Because things got bigger, application size are bigger, and that's why we need more RAM, right? But our brain capacity is still the same, right? Now we have more information to process. So if you are having more information and your capacity is limited, obviously your functionality, your performance will decrease. As long as you keep control of unnecessary thoughts, right? Unnecessary thoughts are like unnecessary application on your phone, which are not useful. In a day, we got 60,000 thoughts, out of which 99% are just thought. They are not anything like that. They are just imaginary. Some of them are worrying, some of them are bugging you. They are not real. They are not having any real life impact. So when you do meditation, you get rid of most of them. So that's the power. Basically, you are cleaning your RAM, brain RAM, basically. So that's what it is in a simple word. Yeah, Kiran, thank you. Over to you.
Wonderful analogy. I think this example the लोगों के हर सबके दिमाग में भी तो छप गया होगा. This is more than enough for people to understand. More information, more compute power to process. Jargon information, processing power increases, time taken to process increases. So be sure what you're injecting in your brain. Amazing. Good. Great. So we'll move to the, I think one speaker we have. Chachu, if you're prepared, do you want to go next?
Yeah, not the same, no, the one I was talking. I changed my thing, no. Sorry, recent experience I had is my own case study. I thought I'll share. That's so many things. Also, you can participate by saying like what went wrong. It's a unsuccessful story recent in my work, no, office work. So I wanted to share, so that might help the people as well.
Sure.
Where, yeah. So I just wanted to say that I got a new assignment. Okay, recently last month I got a new assignment with a new project. It's about our work. Like I work in the IT industry. Like you know, So so what happened? I got the new assignment, and the company, the project, everything was new for me. Okay, and the people also were new for me in that area. So as soon as I joined the team, what happened? I got assigned few based on my experience, right? I got assigned few of the development work, and I think that those were the small ones, comparatively small ones, and I gave that development and made that development ready and gave it back to the user. Okay, and they were quite happy. And after a couple of assignment, small assignment, I got a new big assignment. Okay, so where I went, I was not very clear about the requirement, but with actually the what happens, there are two group of people. There is one first group of people called the functionals. They know the business functions, and the other part of people like technicals, who really work on the technical background. Okay, so what happens, the functional people has to design the business requirement and with the business logic, and the second part of the people, like the technical people, they really do the development. What happened, I'm a part of a development team, and I started working in the development. But what happened, the functional team, the first team, did not give the right input. Okay, so in that case, when I got to know, I raised that query. I mean, I raised that concern to the concerned person. Okay, who he could be, he is a leader. He what he said, he just tried to suppress me, and he didn't take that concern, take it forward to the his leaders. Okay, so when he tried to suppress me, what I did, okay, I thought, okay, let me, without support also, let me take this challenge and develop this one and give it to the give it to the group, the team. But taking that, I started working. One, what happened, I took, I mean, I put my all the effort, okay, all the effort with the double time, everything I did. I tried to develop the thing, and what happened? The development took more time than the normal one, because the one part of the work was not done by the first team. So what happened in that case? But the leaders, the main leaders, they do not know what is going on the background, what is happening, what is the problem issues. But what happened, the development time, it took more. Finally, after the 90%, I can say, after the 90% of the development completed, in the testing phase, it failed. It failed in the testing phase, and after that, I lost that. After developing the 90% of the thing, I lost that hold on the development, because it was not completed in time. So, what do you feel that where it would have gone wrong? Just as a part of participation, you can, if you have heard, no, you can just participate and tell me where it could have gone wrong.
Actually, very good case study. I don't know if everyone heard it. Everyone heard? I think Shiva heard, I know. Rohit heard, because video is on, so we know who heard. If I don't know if other people heard or not. So I think it's a very interesting case study. It's a live case study. It definitely may happen, or must have already happened in your company if you're working in corporate. So anyone wants to add anything? I can also add. Shiva, you can add, maybe anyone, whoever, maybe 1 or 2 points. What must have gone wrong? Shiva, your voice is not coming.
No, Kiran,
Better.
there was no proper coordination.
Proper coordination. Okay.
In time communication. I mean, you should have intimated the team like it would take this much of time. before starting work.
In-time communication.
Yes.
What else?
I think wrong estimate also could be the one reason. If you estimate something can be done in this timeline, then you should deliver it in that timeline. I mean, I've seen this personally. So you should also always have a buffer, because you never know something comes up. So this estimation, people say 10 days, 10 main days is they are going to take. Just for 10 main days, just take 2 days buffer. So people are not considering that 2 days as a estimate. They're saying okay, 10 days only. In my opinion, it should be 12 days. So this could be the factor.
Yes.
And one thing, this was entirely a new team. I think you were interacting, but there was a time this one to understand these people. That maybe would have been taken the time.
Yes. True.
Fair enough. I think all of you are so smart. So as
Yeah.
we've already
Yeah. Uh, okay. Anybody else like any more points like here?
I think I can add one more point. So all of you are actually correct. The team is new, so the initial interaction and bonding was maybe not there. So the response of what you say to them, it will have a delay, because why would they work for you in the first place? And the wrong planning is because it is again the pre-planning. When you don't take these things into consideration, then planning becomes a little tricky there. So plus 2 days is very good point. And Soumya told incorrect, I think, communication in the initial part of it. So that communication didn't happen there. So I think absolutely right, Soumya. Just to add, I think constant communication is another thing I feel, where whenever we are taking a big project, so every week or every 2-3 days, generally I keep my manager or the necessary stakeholders updated about what is the status, just so that if something goes wrong, they also are answerable to customer or client. They can be also prepared, so that it is not surprise for them that suddenly something went wrong and nothing. Now they have to show a sorry face in front of the client, and then they will blast you with a lot of emails and everything useless and all this tamasha khada ho jata hai. So maybe that another point I can add there.
Yes. Yes. Great
Raju,
points.
anything else we missed out or we covered?
Yeah, great points. All are like correct. So many things. So I'll just try to summarize what and all happened. So the first thing is that the new team, okay, and based on the experience and all, no, the high expectation from the management, okay. So that is again another thing. The second thing is like third thing is um, what that we need to communicate, and the as Rohit said, rightly said, right, the correct estimation was done, but given, but was not been communicated to the higher management, okay. It was communicated, but from the leader it was not communicated to the higher management. So that is and wrong practice in the team, that is also like the measure. Those people, those who who is supposed to work on their part, those people did not do their part of work. Again, communication, again, suppose if I am trying to work on that, I should have communicated. If the particular person is not listening, it should go to directly to the management. This is what, whichever practice or whatever we are doing, is we are not, I mean, we cannot do this, the complete this development in this much time. And also there is some part of lacking from the some other team. And again, you know, like take we should not try to be like a hero and take some challenge which is not possible. That also like we sometimes we take the challenge, but even whatever challenge you take and you put all your effort, but that development is not possible to complete in that time frame. Okay, and also as rightly Kiran said that meanwhile, no, in intermediate communication has to go to the management, so that what is the status and all. But what happens when you get so involved in the work, you lose time to communicate people. You will not have enough time to communicate. And when it's not going in a better direction, so then you will feel yourself that it's, how can what shall I communicate? It's not going in that direction. So all those things. Okay, so all those things, so many other part of, other things also was happening. And what happened finally, when after it went out of my hand, after that, those people, those the person who is really taking that charge, he did not do anything. He again came back to me because the development from the scratch, it was developed by me. He came back to me, fixed so many errors and all everything, but my effort was not got recognized, even though it is 95% completed by me alone. So these are all the so many things. So these are all the, I think many people pointed out many correct things here what happened. And finally, I think it's I had so much of learnings from this exercise, because this is the first time after so many years of experience now, it is the first time it happened to my it happened to me. So I thought, okay, maybe why not to share.
Great. Thank you, Chacho, for sharing that. So quick solution points. I think case study, he shared multiple ways. Let me summarize the solution points. Communication, again, it's so essential. Always loop into your necessary stakeholders, whoever is part of the particular project or the team or the goal which you're trying to achieve. If your core MMA people are not aware of it, then trust me, you will be under loop. Man ke chalo, whatever you do, if that thing is not passed on to the right people, you will fall in the well. That has to happen. And second thing is continuous thing, proper planning. Yeah, planning may change within, कभी कभार बीच में change हो भी जाता है depending on the resources. कभी कोई छुट्टी ले लेता है, कभी ये ले लेता है, it happens, but it has to be a little flexible. So you consider the buffer time as well. आप worst case scenario prepare करा दो लोगों को दिमाग में, ताकि once they accept worst case scenario, if you deliver early, they will be so happy. So when I deal with situation, I never tell them कि भाई मैं 5 दिन में कर दूंगा. मैं उनको 10 दिन देके 5 दिन में कर देता हूँ. So when I tell 10 days and I do 5 days, they are so happy. अरे वाह, मजा आ गया. We pre-delivered. मतलब client भी इतना खुश, यार इतना अच्छा. So that trust develops. So preparing people for the worst case, for any, not only this in your corporate, I'm actually telling you in your life as well. Prepare people for the worst case, then over deliver it, because you already prepared for the worst case. You are always on the edge. You're always on the safer side. And yeah, amazing case study. Thank you, Chachu, for sharing. It's a new flavor, so definitely many people would have related it. Thank you so much.
So
Thank
Kiran,
you.
I have a question.
Yep.
So when you say that ask for more time than you require, so I always have this thought that if I say more time, then they will judge me that this person is not capable of doing things on time.
Absolutely, you're actually right. That question even arises to me also when you ask, अगर time बोलते तो कितना दोगे time? So that is where sometimes it comes with your experience, because once you start doing it, कभी कभार बोलेंगे इसके लिए इतना time. And if you don't know how to negotiate, you will get trapped there. Then you will tell less time, then you will not deliver, then you will be, मतलब फिर आपका फिर negative impression start हो जाता है. But when you know कि when you tell about, but आप जब ये एक statement present करते हो अपने team को, lead को, you expect that he will ask why. 5 whys again. You should have the answer predefined before you go and talk to them. आपके पास आंसर ऑलरेडी होना चाहिए. अच्छा, आपने 12 दिन बोला, क्यों? वो बोलेगा क्योंकि मेरे पास 3 डेवलपर है. क्यों? Why not? Why can't we upskill our developer? So you ask yourself ki what he can ask and you be prepared. So if you're clear why are you justifying that particular time, then I think because it's all about a conviction. अगर आप clear हो तो वो बंदा कुछ कर नहीं सकता, वो थोड़ी ना काम करने वाला है. So he will only ask 2 to 3 whys just to check your confidence level. On what grounds or on what basis you're asking, and if you can distribute that in the timeline. So we call it as a project timeline, right? अगर आपने already break down कर दिया होगा task को, बोलो कि चलो इस task के लिए 2 दिन लगेगा, इसके लिए 3 दिन लगेगा, 4 दिन लगेगा. So you already have estimated timeline, and that is how basically you negotiate. So these things generally comes in experience. So Vijay was talking, right? Sales. This is nothing but is a sales principle. If you know how to sell your idea properly, negotiate well, you will become better and better with time. So once you do, you'll fail, you'll realize अच्छा ये तो नहीं करना चाहिए था, अच्छा next time मैं ये गलती नहीं करूंगी. I'll change it and I'll revisit. So I hope the question gets answered, Uma.
Yeah, yes, many you will have many technical people, right? So other people definitely will judge on this basis. Okay, so but we need to be confident, and we need to stick on that timeline whatever we are giving. That's what no, the problem. If we don't stick to the timeline, then it will be a problem for you.
And one more thing, Uma, if you are having this question, just tell your team lead, it is better to deliver early than late. So just make him afraid कि भाई 12 दिन दे रही हूँ, अगर 12 दिन में हो गया ठीक है, अगर suppose we are late, if things are in a backlog, it will be bad impression, right? So better to create a good impression by giving more days and justify. Of course, if you have enough experience, you will be able to justify the days, effort, obviously. So that comes with experience. So if you have experience, you will be able to justify क्यों इतना time लग रहा है, right? And second thing, keep in mind that it is always better to deliver early than late. So अगर 12 दिन लेके भी 15 दिन लेके तो 4 दिन एक्स्ट्रा देके आप पहले डिलीवर कर दोगे, it will be good. अगर 10 दिन बोल के अगर 11 दिन में करोगे, it will be bad. So you should tell your team lead or manager so that they can have this. Okay, मैं समझा लूंगा customer, कोई दिक्कत नहीं.
I would like to add one point here. Like, since we are talking about this deliverables and stuff. So recently, like in my early days, back in 2018 and 19, the same case happened with me. Like at that time, we used to work on waterfall model, like completing the process entirely, and then ekdam aakhri mein, you will be showing up the presentation or something. And I think when everything shifted to agile, I think it was 19, 20 and 21, it drastically shifted to agile. And I think that is a very great practice because everyone is in the loop and there are some sprints going on. And I think that is the excellent practice. Or agar wo hota bhi nahi hai, like if there are 3 demos and if there is a delay in the 3rd demo, but still customer, it's easier to convince the customer कि okay, हमने 2 already आपको deliver कर दिए हैं, this is the 3rd functionality or whatever is the remaining thing, and this is the challenge. So I think there is a trust already with the first 2 deliverables, and it is comparatively easy and the smooth process to process the errors या जो भी challenges आ रहे हैं. So I think that could be the breakdown and the sprints advantage.
Yeah, but Agile, in all the people, all the project, they don't completely follow the Agile.
Yeah.
So that is where this issues comes. Yeah, of course, Agile helps on this in this kind of cases.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, even in my earlier days when I was working on C++, like with ADAS and self-driving cars, and now since we are into AI/ML, now here the Agile could work. So I think it is good for us currently.
And sometimes what happens, lot of wrong practices being followed by the team as well, because they don't do the in the right way. So other people get misguided out of those, and so many other problems and points also there, in addition to that. So that is where yeah. So unless you are satisfied that suppose if you feel that the other people has not done their homework properly, then you need to raise an alarm, and don't take up this kind of assignment unless you are satisfied that the other people have not done their job. So that is where that is another point here.
Yeah.
Great. So all right, so we have last 5-10 minutes, and anyway I wanted to cover, so with respect to time, so I learned 2 important and new quotes this week. It's very interesting because I learned from one of the coach, Vishal. So quote is very powerful. ठीक है, I'll say in Hindi. समय के पास इतना समय नहीं है कि वो दोबारा समय दे सके. समय के पास इतना समय नहीं है कि वो दोबारा समय दे सके. And the second quote is, if 2 people think absolutely same, it means one of them is not thinking. If 2 people think absolutely same, it means one of them is not thinking. So just to give an ideology, so we all are there. अगर हम सब लोग एक ही तरह से सोचेंगे तो फिर we are not required anymore, all of us. So it's actually good to have a difference of thinking, different of thought process, difference of opinion, and that is how, if you can align each other's opinion to a common cause, it becomes something amazing, creative. Okay, so now the quotes are there. I'll just quickly give a very good case study of this. So I was talking about this company called Wolverine. Now this Wolverine company at the 1994 and 1995, it had a kind of a tipping point there where the company was almost dead until that point. It tried ultimately to survive, but it couldn't. And it was basically a shoe company. And 1994, जब US के गांव में तब shoe बेचा करते थे, and that time the company sold around 39,000 pairs a year. So they didn't have enough sales to survive, so they were almost dying. But suddenly something amazing happened in some village or some small backwoods of hometown or family store. So while the shoe brand was dying, what was happening is that this shoe brand was there in the mom and pop stores of small villages. If you remember in the childhood, अगर आप दुकान गए होगे, वहाँ पे आपको Lancer का मिलता होगा दुकान, maybe Sparks, all these small kind of brands were sold in at one place. Bata, Lancer, I don't know, so many brands which I used in my childhood as well when you go to school. And these kind of mom and pop stores, this shoe started being sold there. What happened is that there are few kids in the downtown and some village. They started wearing one of the pair of shoes of this company, and they went to multiple places. They went to small village, small pubs there, some restaurants there, because they wanted to look unique. And anyway, that shoe was almost dying, that shoe brand. So they thought कि चलो यार मैं कुछ अलग पहन लेता हूँ, अलग दिखेंगे. And that is how that small वहाँ पे दुकान में people started noticing that. And at one fashion suit, two executive of this company saw an amazing drastic change. So using this the two kids who started wearing that, something happened in between which created a humongous growth of the sales. And these sales people, executive people, wanted to know कि हुआ क्या, ये suddenly sales बढ़ा कैसे इस company का. So ये लोग गए अपने fashion shoot में, and they ran into one of the stylists at New York, and they asked कि यार suddenly clubs में, bars में, downtown में हर जगह ये shoe लोग क्यों पहन रहे हैं. एंड बैक्स्टर बोलता है ये स्टोरी के बारे में, दैट ये जो दो बच्चे थे, छोटे बड़े बच्चे, ये घूम रहे थे, एंड somebody saw that and the people started buying in the mom and pop stores. धीरे धीरे आके फैल गया वो जाके. Okay, fine, so that's fine. And फैला कैसे? So first point of spreading of that brand happened when this one of the designer who designs shoes, he saw that shoe in that child's foot. उसने adopt किया वो design. He started selling in one of the boutique. So पहले मॉम एंड पॉप स्टोर से बोटिक में आया, फिर उस बोटिक से एक दूसरे डिजाइनर शोरूम में गया, वहां पे वो बंदे ने पूरा वो होर्डर बना दिया था ऊपर टॉप में, बिकॉज इट वाज काइंड ऑफ लिटिल पॉपुलर. एंड फ्रॉम दैट होर्डर it went into so many people through one of the local heroes. So local hero भी पहनने लग गया, उसके बाद local hero पहना, जैसे you see right currently how this new heroes they make up their brand. They start doing serials से फिर आते हैं वो टीवी सीरीज से they go to, let's say, Tollywood or Collywood, then they go to Bollywood, then they go to Hollywood. So ऐसे करते this started becoming a chain reaction. And suddenly in 1995, in the late 1995, the company sold around 430,000 pairs of shoes, and in the next year the sale became 4 times. So basically what happened is the shoe passed on to a tipping point. I was talking about tipping point in the last book club. How do you sustain a brand? How do you sustain your product in a way that you don't give up too early? If you give up too early, the company was actually about to die. इसका मतलब almost company ने 5 से 10 साल spend कर लिए थे, where it almost तो give up कर ही चुके थे, कुछ नहीं होने वाला था. But somehow something happened and the company sales got tipped. And now, do you know what the brand name is? Every one of you have, if you've been to Orion Mall or any big shopping mall, it is a designer brand called Hush Puppies. अगर आपने Hush Puppies का नाम सुना होगा, if you're wearing those shoes, this is how the brand got tipped. It's a designer brand. From $30 shoes जो पहले बिकता था, now it is sold in a huge amount of cost. And that is the power of that tipping point happened. And what are the 3 rules of tipping point which you can make this tipping point work for you is a most interesting factor. Why did this tipping point happen? The first law, the law of the few. What it states is that if you be in the game for a longer period of time and if you believe in your cause, some guy who has high influencing capabilities. In this case, what happened? A local hero started. The local hero का already fan following था. The moment local hero took that shoes, उसको जो भी follow करते थे वो they started buying that shoe. So until you reach to a law of few who can create a magnitude exponential effect towards your growth of your company or your idea or your even in your career as well, that tipping point happens in your life. The second is the stickiness factor. अब देखो जो ये बंदा जो शू पहना था इसका डिजाइन बहुत सिंपल था and it was unique. It was not copied by any other brand, and it was wore by those children. That because of the uniqueness factor, the brand style got stick into the people's mind. The third is the power of context. Simple as that. Power of context, it states that if at this point of time in the COVID era, if you just see in the pre and post COVID era, what are the most critical thing people must be going through? Mental health, physical health. People are so scared about health now because of COVID is spreading like crazy, and still news comes and then people are scared about it. So now at this power of context, if you start things in a right way and persist for a longer period of time, it will tip for you. Now, if you just see the example of Paytm as well, Paytm को कोई भनक नहीं था कि demonetization हो जाएगा. But before that, if you observe Paytm story, they were already there for 8-9 years. And suddenly when Modi ji announced for demonetization, their sales got tipped. Now, if they would have quit earlier, shayad nahi. So the power of context that time helped to them to grow. So that's the power of the tipping point. So the book is really amazing. You can read this book and understand how you can create your life and create an environment such that you can create your life and your ideas to be tipped. So the just 3 rules of tipping point is the law of the few. The second is the stickiness factor. The third is power of context. So that's about it. Thank you so much for listening. Right.
What is the book name?
The Tipping Point.
Okay.
Thank you, Kiran. It was really great, and it really shows how your brand can go to tipping point, and you should never give up. You should believe. So I think those Wolverine company executive, they must have believe they must have stayed at least till that point when these children were wearing. Imagine कि वो थोड़ा time पहले give up कर देते, manufacturing नहीं करते. So these are the things, and obviously, I mean, sometimes there is luck also. So those things help when you work. Obviously, when you work hard, and the more you work hard, the more luckier you get, right? And obviously, these things happen. So really great things, really great point actually, Kiran. Thank you. I think we are almost done. Okay, let me take the photo. Okay, I will just अब सभी लोग अगर हैं तो can they open the camera also? Yeah. Okay. Can you turn on the camera, Apurva, Survi?
Yeah, just give me a moment.